what I'm going to be doing is sharing my personal experience, and actually a lot of what was already said ties well and really just highlights a lot of the aspects of my life that I think will resonate with some of you in terms of just the way that we're handling young people when they're going in through the justice system. I'll start out by saying that I was considered that incorrigible, that uncontrollable young person, that I was impulsive, and that I had, a lack of control over my emotions when I was a younger teen. And so a lot of those sort of developmental stages that I was at led to me being, gang affiliated, led to me taking substances like alcohol, cocaine, and led to me really engaging in risky behavior. And behavior that, again, would lead to me being in the criminal justice system. As a result of my gang affiliation, I ended up committing the crime of attempted murder, a B-class felony conviction in New York. And the only reason that I ended up in the juvenile justice system as opposed to the adult system, because New York's law, the juvenile offender law, that was the law that I got caught up under. I ended up being processed through the adult criminal justice system, but my sentence would inevitably place me in a juvenile setting. The juvenile offender law basically dictates 13, 14, 15-year-olds, you commit a certain offense, you will be tried as an adult. But because of the age that you were at, you'll be placed in a juvenile setting. I was 2 days shy of 16 years old. And so when I was arrested, I was already 16, a month having been 16. So you can see that 2-day difference led to me being in a juvenile setting versus a setting like Rikers Island, which, as media has already portrayed, has not the best reputation nor the best programming for young people as a whole. And so having been placed in the juvenile justice system, I had an opportunity to really see the potential for a future and hope. I went in there hopeless, to be honest, because, again, I sort of thought that entering the justice system was like the end of all of my sort of life as a whole, that I would probably just continue on through the justice system, that I would try to fend for myself when I was in there. Luckily for me, again, having been placed in the juvenile setting, I was surrounded by my peers. And so I wasn't always concerned with my safety in the same way that I thought I would have been concerned about that in an adult setting, surrounded by adults and other people who, again, were not in my own age group. I also had, the opportunity to engage in educational opportunities, programming that was more towards my age group. And so I didn't have to worry about that while I was in the facility, only to the degree where there wasn't enough programming for everybody. Again, I won't sit here and say that every juvenile justice system is perfect. Certainly not the one in New York where I was at in a secure setting. But it was certainly an opportunity for me to engage with staff who really cared about my well-being, others who didn't. But those who did were the ones that inevitably contributed to me having developed this sense of hope and developing this idea that I had an opportunity to go out, because my sentence was 2 to 6 years. And so out of the 6, I had served 4. And in those 4 years, I got my GED, I got 54 college credits, I worked in the kitchen, I did custodial maintenance, I worked in the library, I did everything you could possibly imagine in that facility to keep me busy and to keep me engaged in a positive way. And staff contributed to that in that setting. They didn't all, again, contribute to the positivity, but they all encouraged me to do more with myself during my time there. I also had access to my family at times, although I was 2 hours away from the city, so my family at times could not get to the facility, but it was an environment where we had a fatherhood program. My daughter could come, my family could come, and I could, have toys and play with my daughter. And it was an opportunity, again, for me to connect with my daughter in a way that I hadn't done. And it wasn't always the case, I couldn't have them all the time. But it was an environment where I felt that my stay there wasn't as bad as it would have been if I had been in an adult setting, where, again, stories come down from the adult facilities, or someone who gets into a fight, catches a charge, goes to a jail, comes back, and it's like they're completely different after that. They come back and it's like I'd rather be here than be in the jail, because I can't even have my family visit me there at times. I don't have all the books and all the other stuff that I have here in this facility. There was just a lot more resource for them in the juvenile setting versus a jail or a prison. And a lot of my peers were facing life in prison as well. And so a lot of them currently are still in that setting, and I still to some degree hear about them, and what they're doing there at times is nothing, because there's not a lot of available programming for them. But the reentry aspect was also something that I looked forward to towards the last year that I was there, where I actually started thinking about what it would be like to go to a college campus and continue my college education. I also thought about what would it be to have a job. Vera offered me an internship, so that was the lucky draw. But how many young people, again, come out with that experience is really sometimes based on exception or an exceptional person, and that shouldn't be the case. We should always have the hope that another Hernan, would have the ability to come out and stand on top and have the support of a parole officer who considers the developmental stage that you're in. My parole officer came to supervise me, see me, and I used to go report every other week, and that was it. There wasn't really an interaction about this is the kind of program that you can do, this is what else you can engage in to do something positive with your life. It was really the adult mentality of you can handle it all on your own. You tell me that with $50 cash and a train ticket and go home, like, okay, I can do it on my own. I guess I can. But I had, again, the opportunity to have a lot of that offered to me in the juvenile setting, and I can say that I would have been offered that in an adult setting. And again, with the B-class felony conviction, my likelihood of being able to succeed in the community was fairly low, just because of the severity of the offense, the record, having the collateral consequences of that record. I mean, I got denied 15 jobs. I got denied a ton of opportunities, and I was really cornered. And 6 months out, I was ready to just give it all up and quit. And that sense of hope that I had established while in the facility, through some positive people and people in the community who came to volunteer and see me in that facility, was diminishing very quickly because of the sort of, again, limitations that my criminal record imposed as an adult conviction. And so every time I went to an employer and said I was convicted of a felony, what kind of a felony? B-class felony conviction. Can you give me more detail? I hurt someone. Can you give me more detail? I shot someone. You can't really make a case for yourself in that predicament. And again, you can't take back the offense, but you certainly can't sometimes make the case that I was young back then, and that was a mistake that I regret. But employers and other people will not see that at times. And even in the juvenile justice setting in the facility, staff often saw me as that uncontrollable kid just because of the offense. But the fact that I was involved in so much programming and surrounded by my peers, it sort of like leveled out because there were other people like me who were also engaged in positive programming. And so when we're talking about the brain development research, when we're talking about the law, the legal aspect of it, there are certain mechanisms that we can create to get young people into these settings that, again, will offer them a meaningful opportunity versus throwing them in an adult correctional system that will, again, hamper those abilities and might deprive them of the sense of hope, especially if they're being charged with outrageous sentences that, again, I was supposed to get 18 years had I not been processed through the juvenile offender law and in the juvenile justice system. I would not be talking to you right now if I had been processed as an adult, and I certainly would not have gotten all the accolades that I've gotten up until now, hadn't I been offered the opportunity for growth, opportunity, and for reentry. So I'll end on that note, letting you all know that, again, I'm very happy to be here and to speak on behalf of this topic because, again, I think it's a very important topic in terms of how we handle young people moving forward.